Ah, well, hey, how's everyone doing? Today is a special day because we usually tape on Saturday. But today, right now, we're typing on a Wednesday because I had the chance to get a very special guest, and she has some very interesting things to tell us uh, about the African continent and about her home, Ethiopia. Now, you know this is the Concerned Forum, and I'm your host, Robert Gumbs. You probably might not know, well, you should if you don't. There's a lot of excitement going on right now, both here in New York and in D.C. And this pertains to the investigation right now of Donald Trump. And as you may not know, or once again I say should know, the office of his attorney was paid a visit by the FBI. Make a long story short, all those undercover personal papers, data, what have you, that the Donald was so intent upon keeping secret, well, they're really no longer secret. And the court officer, Mr. Mueller, is quite within his rights to do this. Now, you hear this talk from Trump and his friends that, oh, well, if they go into such and such, that's crossing a red line. If you are the policeman, I am the person that's being investigated. Nowhere in American jurisprudence do I have the right to tell you, well, you can investigate this part of me and my paperwork, but you can't look over here. You can't look into my bank account to see if I was getting money from the Russians or, something along those lines. That's ridiculous. So this imaginary right that President Trump and his thuggish friends, and I do mean thuggish, because for them to attack the FBI the way they do, as an American, I have some sincere problems with that. It's an investigation. It's a legal investigation. And as an American citizen, I want the investigation to continue to go through. Because remember, we are based in this country upon the main concept, that concept being no one, no man, no woman is above the law. And I think that the Republicans, their conservative allies, all of them, they need to stop and think. Because if we allow Donald Trump to get away with this, then we are no better than the so-called, and I say so-called because I think it's a derogatory term, banana republics that Trump and his friends like to ridicule all the time. As a matter of fact, we are worse than them because this would make us hypocrites if we allowed the president to get away with basically keeping all of his so-called personal records personal. Because if they're illegal, if there's some illegality going on, then they can't be, then by the very nature, they cannot be personal. I can't be driving along, you stop me to check and see if I'm trying to smuggle guns, but you find a dead body in the trunk of my car. If I'm the law enforcement, am I supposed to overlook the dead body because I didn't find smuggled weapons? Come on, it's ridiculous. Okay. And that's what Trump and those folks are trying to do now. Now, I have a good friend, Miss Abyenesh. Her last name is Asrat, and she is our guest from Ethiopia. And I'm going to ask her to tell us about herself.
Well, thank you, Robert, for having me to host this program with you today. I'm really humbled and honored to be here. I know your work has been so stimulating and inspiring to many people. Continue the good work.
I'm trying.
I am Abyenesh Asrat, born and raised in Ethiopia. I came to the United States so many years ago as an exchange student. And then I was actually that time, United States and Ethiopia were good friends, and both countries have exchange program, including the Peace Corps, etc., etc. But I was one of the lucky one to be chosen to come to the U.S. And the host family, who lives in Connecticut, Westport, are just incredibly wonderful family, loving and caring, although I was homesick many times, but they were kind enough to make me feel very comfortable. Saying all that, after I finished high school here, just for 9 months, I went back to Ethiopia to see what I can do for my country. That time, Ethiopia, to me, according to my definition, was in peace. Lots of love, lots of respect, and Ethiopianism means a lot because we were taught the history, how many bloods were shed to fight against the fascist Mussolini, who killed thousands of Ethiopians, including my uncles, the youngest two uncles of my father. They were gunned down while they were fighting for freedom of Ethiopia and for the flag. Green, yellow, red is Ethiopian flag. They were fighting and they lost their lives for the country. Thank God, Mussolini was unable to stay to colonize us, to slave us. Because of that freedom, we Ethiopians all over the world, especially my generation, we walk with our head up. We really feel confidence and intelligent and passionate and committed people. Wherever we go, we set stage of loyalty and intellectual ability, you name it. So we have good record. So when I came back, I really want to go to predominantly or mixed college, because Connecticut, Westport, although I did not have any kind of discrimination, and also I came from Ethiopia, a country that has never been colonized, so I wouldn't even know the issue. But before I came, there was some talk, be careful with the Negroes. That's a divide and conquer practices even then. Well, actually, that was the high peak of United States problem. So I really want to see the African American. That time they were called African American or Negroes. So I chose to go to Bennett College in North Carolina, and that really gave me a lot of.
I'm sorry, you said you went to college in South Carolina?
North Carolina.
In North Carolina?
Yeah, Greensboro.
In Oh, you went there?
Bennett College, yes, I did.
Oh.
It was, it was not a smooth sailing. There was some bumps.
I guess not.
It was sometimes I felt that I was not accepted because again, not knowing, what the African Americans have been going through. It's not in our curriculum back in Ethiopia. Although Emperor Haile Selassie was aware of it and very supportive of that. And of course, I believe the Ethiopian government that time were very aware of it. But in school curriculum in my generation, I don't remember any kind of schooling on that. Are you kidding? Even here, in the state of Seattle, in many parts, they skip the African American history in high school. That's for fact.
Well, you got to excuse me because I'm still a little bit stunned. See, I didn't know that you had gone to school in North Carolina.
I did, and it was a very hot time.
I bet it was.
But you know, it didn't bother me. Again, I have never been colonized. I see everybody with the same eyes. But I started learning how my African American sister went through, and I was reading a lot of books, specifically about the African American and the Jewish American. So that helped me by the second year of college. That really helped me to understand, you know, the misery, the abuse, you know, African American went through, and that's really make me really strong and advocates actually. So when I went to the graduate studies in Michigan, I had my first experience of discrimination in the pizzeria, but I was strong enough to handle that, to go straight to the pizzeria manager, and I said to him, look, no, my pizza is not here. What's going on? I know I'm not only black, but I was able, and I said to him, I insisted he must be fired for doing this. He apologized. And so I became not only advocating for myself, but for African American. But moving along, and then after graduate studies, Ethiopia became communist. They overthrew
Haile Selassie was the emperor,
Emperor
right?
Haile Selassie. To me, in my generation, he saved Ethiopia from colonialism along with Emperor Menelik. But he was so passionate about education. He went out of his way to encourage students to complete high school, to complete universities, and then he appointed them to go to the U.S. or in Europe to study for more education and to come back to Ethiopia to contribute to the local people. He did a lot of work. Unfortunately, for unknown reason, I'm still in shock. They did not acknowledge his contribution. The hate came along with the communist government, and the communist was teaching them, the EPRP group, to be more hateful toward this, what every government did for Ethiopia, especially Emperor Haile Selassie. So that generation created the current government, which is another apartheid, divided the country into pieces in terms of tribalism, ethnicity, religion, even to go from one state to another state or one county. Your ID will say Robert Amara tribe or Tigray tribe or Gurage tribe rather than Ethiopian. Identical to apartheid. But recently, about 2 weeks ago, 2 months ago, the sitting prime minister resigned. And then about a week ago, they appointed a young man to be the prime minister. He spoke eloquently, but the one I give credit almost for the last 10 years is a vocalist called Theodros Kasahon, or Teddy Afro. In his lyrics, every song, he was integrating or he was composing about the history of Ethiopia. Because during the communists, no history. This government picked it up and fanned it. So those EPRP group, during the communists, and then their children became completely resentment to the culture of Ethiopia. They call it, they call people feudal and this and that. So they never had a chance to study the history because nobody taught them the history. But so Teddy Afro, the musician, the vocalist, it was like a quilt. He put every single ethnic together in his lyrics and teaching what the previous government did for Ethiopia and the freedom. how you don't touch your mother, how you don't abuse your own mother. Ethiopia is the mother of Africa. When every country in the world appreciated this Emperor Haile Selassie and appreciate Ethiopia, who even free the colonized African to freedom, he said, how dare you? So that agitation and based on educational information through his lyrics help the, younger generation.
Yeah, let me point out something. It's interesting that you say that. See, you said a few things today that have really electrified me that I didn't know. And it's helped me to see one or two things that are very important, but you have made it somewhat clearer. One of the problems that Africa has is the constant tribalism. You know, well, the president's from this tribe, the opposition's from another tribe.
Yeah.
That, you know, you talk about Ethiopia never really being a colony. That's one of the reasons.
Well, it has never been colonized because the previous leaders of Ethiopia, they were managing to have a position for everybody, post in the government, especially Emperor Haile Selassie, because I grew up during his time and I'm very confident to witness what I've seen when I was growing up. So he was he engaged almost every tribe in the government. And then his children, grandchildren are married to certain tribes. It's not only him himself is a result of a couple of tribes mixed.
Yeah.
You know, so it was incredibly harmonious country, especially with the freedom. I guess, you know, the students who studied Marxist and Leninist, all those communist mentality, they just want to say down to Emperor Haile Selassie. But guess what? We end up in a communist government.
Yeah.
And then this younger generation next to the communists, they split the country into pieces, tribes. They look at you and they will identify you what tribe you are. But the good news is hopefully, I think Theodoros Kassaoun's lyrics has been incredibly instrumental to not only to galvanize, but the song has been playing in his wedding in Washington, D.C., where the majority of Ethiopians live all over the United States.
Yeah.
And by the way, it is number one in the Billboard. And then the Canadian, I believe it's the Parliament in Winnipeg and Ottawa, they honored him for singing peace, you know, peacemaker, and you want united Ethiopia. But so this prime minister, his speech to me is very similar to Theodoros Kassaoun's lyrics, which is perfect, by the way, because Theodoros prepared the Ethiopian youth who does not have a clue about their culture, about religion, except not all of them, but most of them. So when this prime minister make his statement, acceptance statements a week ago, but again, the communist government was put in Ethiopia through coup d'etat with the support of the United States. He was shipped out by United States, was shipped to Zimbabwe. And then this government was pushed in by Bush Sr. They were in Albania practicing Albanian communism. He said their English is impeccable and he put them into power. So my hope and pray for the people of Ethiopia is the current Prime Minister, Dr. Abiy, will set the stage for election. The people of Ethiopia have never practiced to vote. In 1997, they went out to vote. They were jailed. Yeah, including journalists. You know, I'm not a politician, but I love Ethiopia so much. And I would love to contribute more for my country.
Right.
So I hope this will be an official vote for the people to choose the government who they want to work with. He promised to engage the opposition group, the local opposition, those who live abroad, those who live on exile, to come home, which is fantastic. So in 2 years, he will finish his term as a transitional prime minister. Hopefully, he will be part of the government, but engaging the rest of Ethiopia.
Now, let me ask you a question. Some things that I have been thinking about. Right now in Africa, I noticed this when I was at the White House, and it was at the beginning at that time, in the late 80s, that the Chinese were just starting at that time to really start doing a lot of economic business.
If you don't mind, before we go to the Chinese, I like to talk about me, because the reason why I put Ethiopia as a front, because I respect my country. I love my country. Okay, even if I live this many years in the United States, my heart and soul is still in Ethiopia every day. Okay. So, and then when I left Ethiopia, I left with two things: my religion, which is Orthodox Tewahedo faith, and then the freedom and the blood Ethiopian family shed for me to live freely from colonialism mentality. So that freedom and my religion is the one I brought to the United States. And I live on that still. So what I did is I finished university, and when it was time for me to go back, there was a resentment to those who are educated in the United States.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. The communist government did not want us to go back.
Tell us about this.
They just don't want us to go back and then work in Ethiopia. Very resentful, because he was busy having a relationship, all kind of affair with Russia and Cuba. So Ethiopia was completely invaded by Russia and Cuba.
Well, I remember that.
So what I did was, okay, I'm going to move to New York. I found a job, to work. So I worked with New York Medical College, affiliated organization, and that gave me a very good opportunities, because it was department is it's affiliated in 5 different hospitals. That gave me the opportunities to work from the very poor American families to the very rich Junior Ligon and the Mayflower great-grandchildren.
So you had a chance to basically have work of a cross-section.
I did.
Okay.
And also that gave me an opportunity to work with multidisciplinary team. Psychology, psychiatry, social worker, pediatric, internal medicine, everybody.
Well, what is your degree in?
My master's is on development and administration. My first degree is on psychology and education, especially on early intervention on children.
So you get all this wonderful education. You go home to say, I'm going to take everything I've learned.
Hey, look, that was my dream, but I did not sit back and depress myself. And instead, I said, okay, you know what? New York is it.
I would think your country could use people like yourself.
Yeah, but as I said, when you're not wanted, especially me, who speak my mind very honestly and clearly, you're not accepted. When you talk, you end up either in jail or gunned down. But anyway, moving forward, I just decided to work for New York Medical College in one of the hospitals. That gave me the leverage and the caliber, and my goodness, I did a lot of changes, including the infant who their database is thrown for PhD candidates from Columbia and NYU to study, but without changing, without rehabilitating them. They were just languishing. If you don't correct the early developmental delays, it will be too late. So that was the key transformation. And I also set up in hospitals, which became international model on infant school, stimulating infants who has developmentally delayed, especially in cognitive, and as well as toddler school. So those kids who were coming to see the pediatrician, they were able to get all this intellectual stimulation. So when they were enrolled in Head Start or daycare, they were as smart as regular children.
Right.
Yeah, so that was pretty good. And then, you know, I get involved with the United Nations as a volunteer. So I start sitting on Commission of Status of Women on their planning committee, which gave me a good leverage also to engage Africans who are coming in the month of March, which is International Women's Month, for conferences, and I was able to engage them to be more aggressive, to be able to tell the story of Africa and African needs to the UN rather than Europeans telling us about what Africa needs.
Yeah.
That was very successfully done. And then I also start assembling, get involved with the International Youth Assembly, and I start recruiting American students because they need to be engaged also.
Most definitely.
You know, they say the Americans, they don't need it because everything in the backyard. I say, you know what, I'm not going to take that. Okay?
Yeah, that's not
so
necessarily
I start
true.
recruiting high school 18 and up, and then universities, especially city colleges. Amazing. And there were thousands of other students from all over the world. Unfortunately, you know, America is the richest country in the world, but when it comes to knowledge of the international world or community, they're not there. They're not intelligent, because the students from Costa Rica and Kenya and Ghana and much brighter, you know, when they were explaining their vision 5 years from now on the PowerPoint.
Well, this is something that I'm personally familiar with. It wasn't always like that, but over the last 25 years, 25, 30 years, not just young and old, but Americans in general, we have really fallen in terms of what's going on. And listen, we have a president that says that climate change is something that was cooked up by folks in Africa and China to take money from America and Britain. That's the mentality that many Americans, fortunately, it's not the majority, but it's a very large and hurtful minority that basically believes that ignorance is the way to go.
Exactly.
And that's the problem.
Yeah.
Tell us more.
Understand. So what happened is, with all these experiences and exposures and working very hard to make differences in the life of the youth in the United States, I engage them with United Nations, 100%. So every year, it's a little pricey, but they can come and participate. So I say to them, you know, next year you're going to come with your PowerPoint. Now you know.
Right.
It was 3 consecutive days, and I was able to finance most of their the services for them. And then from here, I also acknowledged something is happening in Ethiopia, which is fistula. A fistula is when young girls marry, they become incontinent, which is leaking through the rectum, feces, and then urine, because they cannot carry a big baby, so the baby pushes and unable to come out. The cervix is so small, so the more the baby push, the more it gets dilated, the more they open up. And so the baby will never be born alive. 93% born stillbirth. They die before they are out. So I saw that article on the New York Times editorial section, and then a good friend of Ethiopia, Richard Haas, a Peace Corps, about 70 years ago, who taught in Dombidolo, came with this fabulous idea. I said, you know, Abyenesh, we can start a foundation. So we work together. We bring so many educated Americans and some a model husband from Ethiopian origin, etc. And then we brought Dr. Hamlin, the Australian who has been doing this in Ethiopia for years quietly. So we finally brought her to Oprah show, to the United Nations. So money started pouring out. Unfortunately, the way they let Richard go was very unpleasant. And then somebody took his post. I stayed because I proposed for our Ethiopians who live outside Ethiopia to build a hospital in Harar province for fistula patients.
My God.
Okay, and because Europe, Italy did Bahar Dar and Australia did Mekelle. These are all the provinces. I said, how about us? We just cannot sit here and wait for Europeans to make things for us, to build things for us. But guess what? The Ethiopians cooperated. They were willing and able, day and night. We fundraised all over the states. We made a lot of money. So we send that money to Dr. Catherine Hamlin to Ethiopia. She has all the engineers and the land in Harar. That was a land that was given to us. And we built a hospital for our sisters in Ethiopia. Now we have 5 satellite hospitals and 1 college that's educating only midwife students to deliver. So that's been very successful. To me, all those hospitals in a few years will be a maternity ward or a prenatal clinic rather than for fistula. Along with that, I was inspired to start my own foundation, Nation to Nation Networking, almost 12 years ago. And that gave me also, again, a very open door to do whatever I want. Because wherever I attended, so many board meetings, executive level, board level, I give me ideas. I'm blessed with that. But I said, you know what, I can put those ideas to my foundation. And I incorporated that. We have been doing a lot of program based on bridge building across culture. When we had 9/11, for instance, we were able to host a program on faith and values because there was so much hate at the United Nations. We partnered with ambassador of Rwanda because they had their own genocide that time.
Yeah.
So we did a very, very good job. And it's been very stimulating. They're good people who've been supportive. Ever since I was young, my father played a very big role, Asrat in raising us with love and affection. And then when he died, my brother, Gash Paulos, and my late brother, Gash Tarafa, and my sister, Kalamork, they were very supportive. I'm the youngest.
Oh, you're the youngest?
Yeah. So
baby of the family?
Yeah.
Okay.
And spoiled by my father. I cannot deny that.
That's okay.
We were fortunate to go to private school. I mean, he really nurtured us, but also he was very firm with good, loving discipline. So we were all successful, let his soul rest in peace. So with this Nation to Nation, since I grew up around my dad, witnessing how nice and kind and humble he was, so we all inherited his kindness. So I went to Ethiopia many times back and forth, and I collaborated with Addis Ababa University, which is one of the mega university in Africa, in the world actually.
Yeah.
The science department, who is the dean is Dr. Shibiru. And then Dr. Zanaba, he's an international affair responsible person in international affair. So, and then the professors, Professor Itbarak, Professor Sisai, were very supportive to my ideas, very, very, very supportive. And they really carried me on their wing to make this happen. So I signed memorandum of understanding with them, and then we launched solar cooking, which is very much needed all over the world. You mentioned climate change. That is like the game now. In addition to solar cooking training, we recruit vendors, street vendors, to educate them. We did not educate university students. You know, we recruit people from the street to help us to educate them on solar cooking, because they already have that business mentality.
Okay.
So we did that, and then we also trained 2 fistula faculty from Dr. Hamlin's headquarters. That way, when the fistula patient go home after they are completely healed from fistula, they learn how to prepare food with the solar, so that gives them business. Those women who cooked with cow dung, charcoal, and wood, they end up with respiratory infection. The babies carry all kind of eye infections. It is so terrible. And from the cow dung, the women who fix it to dry it in the sun, they get funguses that travel to their bloodstream and to the hair. So it took us 7 years to study this, and it has so much side effects. So we're blessed, to be honest. You know, the university engaged them.
Excuse me. Explain to the family again the cooking with the dung, charcoal, wood, because I don't think that a lot of my family out there really understands what you mean when you say dung.
Okay, cow dung is a feces of a cow. No, that's the feces.
Cow crap, in other words.
Yeah, exactly, cow crap. Well, you know, whatever you want to say, but that's the bottom line. And you know, the people are intelligent, but since it has so many parasites in it, you know, they put dry hay, dry grass to dry it in the sun, and they cook it. They use it for fuel. By the way, it does incredible work. I mean, it serves very good purposes. But those women who sit there and make it into a big pita bread, but in a large scale, it's also big business. They sell it.
They sell it?
Yeah, you can sell it. After it's dried and everything, prepare it, they sell it.
Isn't that dangerous to eat? I got a pan. I'm going to fry some bread, some dough.
But it is dried in the sun. The sun in Africa and Ethiopia it will dry you up. Even the cow dung is dried. Not the second day, but probably 4 days in the sun. It dries.
Isn't that dangerous, though, with the parasites and stuff?
Preparing is very, very dangerous. But once you dry, they all die. And you don't cook, you know, with the food. You cook it in the fire. You use it for fuel. Yeah. Okay. So you're not in contact. But those women and children who prepare it to dry it is the one who exposed to so many parasites. That's causing a lot of skin problem and hair problem because it goes to the nails. But you know what? It's good in a way to talk about miseries, but you need to be very organized to bring results, because people are sick and tired of hearing miseries. But don't misunderstand me. There are many NGOs out there who lives in the conflict and misery of Africa. That's where the money is. Especially in the United States, people are very generous. When they see babies and wax face and flies and stomach this big full of parasites, they give money. But that cannot go on from now on. They need to produce the results. What have they done to those children? You know, NGO should not be funded who shows photographs and misery of other people. There is a better way of showing the results, and then you can ask money. With the students we educated, we train on the solar training. They're already training others. That was the purpose. We train 18 out of 20. and they are in rural Ethiopia, and they're already training. The good news is, when they're training others, they're saving at least from 300 to 500 birr. You know, the cow dung and the firewood and the charcoal cost them a fortune. So that money goes to the children's book, pencils, school uniform, shoes, vegetables. You know, that's a lot of money for
I'm
for
sitting
those
here
women.
and I am just so
So-
amazed listening to
And
this.
then another point is the solar panel.
Mhm.
We help the students to learn how to assemble it.
Right.
By the way, I took 2 engineers with me. And then our experience at airport was not pleasant.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Why
yeah.
not?
Well, we know we have all the documents, all the approval. So when we arrived there, I requested consultation visa, because this guy, including myself, we're going as a consultant, not as a tourist. Once you go in as a tourist, you will be locked up. You cannot do anything. Of course, you can dine and wine and visit, but you cannot do the work, the teaching. So we were at the airport for a while.
Well, obviously you were able to surmount your problems, though.
Of course, you know, eventually, but it was a very unfortunate experience. But anyway, but we managed to get out, and we wanted to be there 2 days in advance to set up and everything. But we were released
Yeah.
the midnight, and the next day was Monday. So, but we did the work anyway. We couldn't do it in the morning, but we started in the afternoon. It was really successful. But I credit to the Addis Ababa University, the dean and the professors. So this solar panel that we helped the students to assemble was amazing, because it does a lot of work. So if people want to help us financially or working with us, what we can do is they can donate straight to the university.
Okay.
Is
And what's
that
the name of that university?
Addis Ababa University, and that is a science department where they do a lot of study, research on malaria. It's located in Arat Kilo.
Okay, that's the science
Kilo.
department.
Yes.
Let me ask, this might sound like a naive question. You were talking earlier about they always show the picture of the, sick little infant and like the little boy with his stomach out like that. What causes that?
Well, when you are undernourished, your skin pigmentation, brings so many different coloration. Poor nutrition, lack of hygiene. By the way, the United Nations and so many NGOs are talking about so many things, but the main causes of problem and death is not having clean water. Oh yes, infant mortality, maternal health, everything, 99.9% is lack of clean water. So the United Nations, the whole world need to work on one agenda, water. Because in 10 years, according to the Paris climate report, I believe it was 2015, 60 million people will be migrating Africa and many parts of the world in search of water.
And speaking on the military side, my old side, that's when we have to get involved, military, because that causes all types of social disconnects,
Exactly,
which cause war.
Precisely, exactly. But you know what, though, Robert? Europe has closed the borders. So where do these political unrest young people migrate to, or in search of better economy and better education?
Yeah, they've closed the borders here in the United States.
No, America does not allow it either. Are you kidding? Even now, those who came on on a voluntary visa. He want them out.
Yeah,
But
that's what I mean.
no,
yeah.
no. In case of Ethiopian and Eritrean,
Uh-huh.
they migrate to northern Kenya, and Sudan. Sudan is flooded
My God.
with Ethiopian and Eritrean refugees. Unbelievable crisis in the world. So they need to talk about trafficking. Why are these young people are trafficked? Why are they, there's nobody in this world, including me, who want to live outside their own country of birth. No one. But the political climate, the economy, the agony, the misery, disperse all these innocent people all over the world.
Well, let me ask you this: as a naive American, I'll make believe I'm the average Joe out there. What caused all this?
Robert, political unrest, when there's no freedom, when journalists are unable to speak, when they're not able to criticize the government. How many countries in Africa has free press? Really? Most of the journalists are languishing in jail for speaking the truth.
I think the only one that I know that comes close will probably be South Africa. And they have their problems as well.
If there are 4 countries out of 54,
Uh-huh.
I would exact even 10. It would be amazing.
Jesus Christ.
Okay? The political unrest, being colonized intellectually. When you go abroad in search of good fortune, you colonized that intellectual, all that brilliant young mind is being used by America or Europe as second-class, even fourth-class citizens, and instead of serving their own country. So the most unpleasant experience for human being are 2 things: to be trafficked, both for sex trafficking, the adoption of all these innocent babies to the country they don't even have the clue where they're going to be raised, who's going to raise them, lack of religion and language and culture, the same like slaves.
Yeah.
The slaves was brought to United States against their will. And what happened after they came? They split the families into pieces. That way they will not practice their culture, their religion, and their language. They want them to speak only the Anglo-Saxon language, English. The same with all these trafficked in babies. They're good parents who adopt them, but the majority adoption, honestly, I'm 100% against it. Where is the culture? If you don't have a sense of belonging and identity, you're nobody. You're just good-looking, dark-skinned person. The other thing I bring very firmly is African Union. African Union need to work harder. There is an ambassador in Washington, D.C. There is an ambassador to the United Nations in New York, and there is a headquarters in Addis Ababa. They cannot sit there and just witness all this. They need to work on this. Africa for Africa. Even engage our African Americans, Caribbean friends to come and help us. That is very important. So, African Union, I have a message for them. I partnered with them in 2012. I gave them Ambassador Tete. He's from Angola. He's no longer there. I believe there is a new ambassador now. That institution, I gave them 7 pages of proposal or concept note saying Africa Week, WEAK, the whole week dedicated to Africa, so that we can showcase the diaspora, their contribution to the United States. And not only that, to build bridges between the diaspora and Africa, the continent, regardless of governmental issues or political issues or economic issues. So I invited the New York Amsterdam News. They took incredible photo. But I want them to partner with me, nation to nation, every year. They did not. So I have good news for them when we have the new ambassador. That is for Africa, I gave it to them, not only for special interest. That concept note is a key. So the engineers can assemble with engineers, the medical doctors, everybody, different discipline, including the housewife, the mothers, etc. So it's an amazingly wonderful idea, and we used it together, and then this has to stop. Taking somebody's idea and implement it on that person. But since we have a new ambassador, hopefully, when they find that concept note, which they have been using it, to invite me to participate and everybody else to invite. But with this nation to nation, many people were very supportive. I'll finish there. Many people were very supportive, like Gannat Anfo, Bogozian. She's been very, very helpful. Tadas Magazine, online magazine, who talked very positive, inspirational article on Ethiopian diaspora, and many others. My brothers and sisters, they continue to be supportive of my foundation. And then the Abyssinia Baptist Church, also, I'm the one who traveled with them to Ethiopia in 2007. They were celebrating 200 years.
Yeah,
and I was very fortunate to travel with them, to help them in many ways. At the same time, when we came back, they want to work with the coffee farmers in Ethiopia. And we worked together on the pyramid, how to do it from bottom up. And very successfully, there was 700 farmers, but now there are 5,000 families that is supporting.
Now, I mean, what you have spoken on today, it is, wow, it is extremely heavy. And as I sit here, I'm picturing in my mind, well, I should say one of the things that I'm picturing in my mind is the fact that, and you alluded to it earlier in our conversation, here in America, we really don't understand what's happening in the rest of the world. And you make me think back to when I used to travel in that part of the world. And I'm sorry to say that things have not improved since the late 80s, early 90s. As a matter of fact, they've gotten worse.
Yeah. Well, you know why? The school curriculum is not consisting these important documents. Very important. The newspaper, even we have a very peaceful transfer from the resigned Prime Minister to the new Prime Minister, Dr. Abiy. It was not even in any major, it should be on the front page. Transferring power without any bloodshed. Isn't that what we want for Africa? But
we want to see that for here in the United States.
Well, you have a long way to go on that, and I wish you all the best. But
listen, one other thing.
You didn't mention about Chinese and other.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you about.
We have Indians and Chinese and Pakistani and everything, including the kitchen sink, to be very honest with you.
Okay.
And, the people of Ethiopia are intelligent and able and willing to learn very quickly. And they can teach you. Even with the solar cooking, they're doing much better than the way we did it for them. Improving. And now we found 2 regions where we can use the materials rather than me carrying all the suitcases of materials. Back in Ethiopia, we can manufacture it.
I guess what
I'm saying is,
yeah.
what I'm saying is, the Chinese are there to do their own agenda. One thing that I'm 100% against is how on earth African Union allow them to build African Union, the building. When Emperor Haile Selassie started Organization of African Union in the 60s, early 60s, I believe 1963 or 1964, it was to galvanize those African leaders who were colonized under colonialism to see what we can do together. And Kwame Nkrumah and everybody, Nyerere, Nasser, everybody was there, and they were brainstorming how to
those were great names,
decolonize the whole 50 countries in Africa. And it was well done. But when they built African Union by the Chinese, with the Chinese money, that tells you something very clearly. When somebody do something free for you, you are colonized immediately.
Why did they do that? Why did they allow that to happen?
I ask you the same question. You know, you need to address it as a media person. That needs to be questioned. So now, that's one thing. You know, so the 54 countries in Africa who assemble there, probably the light is off, turned off in the evening by Chinese. Maybe the light is on in the morning by Chinese. I'm just speculating this, because you know why? They are in charge. But the way they treat Ethiopians, the Chinese, is a nightmare. So Ethiopia, a country that has never been colonized, was never been pushed around, because we are very superior no matter what other people say. You know, we might be tiny and soft-spoken. Of course, there are some big-sized Ethiopian as well. We don't accept that. But the good news, I think, this new prime minister is beginning to receive a lot of notes and messages how the people of Ethiopia are sick and tired. There was a lot of bloodshed in the last 3 years to overthrow this government against the sitting government.
Right.
They're sick and tired of it. The millions arrested, millions died. Millions fled to Sudan and Kenya, which is not comfortable at all.
No, it's not.
From a poor country to another poor country, it's from the frying pan to the fire.
I haven't been to Sudan, but I've been to Kenya.
Chinese, they're not engaged with the local people. And when they even do building and water and all these things, they don't even bring their bulldozer, the equipment they're using here. It is labor. That's small frame young men. It just
Wait a minute, hold on a second. I don't understand.
It's
They
terrible.
don't when a construction job that the Chinese excuse me. Okay. So when the Chinese are doing a construction project, they don't bring heavy equipment?
I did not see as much as, because they're developing big condominiums and hotels. When people need food and clean water, the whole cities are flooded with condominium and hotels, which is funded by the Saudis, and God knows who else is funding it.
Okay.
So it's a mess. So to me, I think Ethiopians are capable of building Ethiopia, along with some honest professional from all over the world, especially the Ethiopian who lives outside Ethiopia are capable of building not only Ethiopian, all diaspora, all African diaspora, local people from the continent, they are capable, trust me, or rebuilding. But the last thing I want to say is to the Ethiopian youth, The word, the name Ethiopia is on the map. The name Ethiopia is given to us as a nationality. They have to stop saying Abasha. Abasha is a slur like nigger to me. Okay?
Okay.
So when I go to a restaurant, they would say, "Are you Abasha?" I say, "No, I'm Ethiopian American."
I'll always keep that in mind.
They can say, they call themselves Abasha in their own cubby hole, in their own living room. But outside to restaurants to inject this toxic, unheard of, it's not a nationality. I looked it on the map in case I'm wrong.
Right. Well, unfortunately,
It's okay.
unfortunately, as you can see, I have good guests, and that's one of the curse of having good guests. The time just runs away, and that has definitely happened today. And I'm a little, I don't know if you folks out in the family know this, I'm a little shaken up. And I'm fairly worldly. You know, I've spent a lot of time overseas. And my friend has told me some things that I was not aware of. Not very nice things either. But there are things that we definitely need to know.
Exactly.
And we definitely need to start doing our homework. And you will see her again. And, well, you know, you see me every Saturday. So this is the Concerned Forum. And I'm your host, Bob Gumbs. And we will see you next week. Bye now. Have a good one. I am so impressed.
Thank you very much. I'm very, very happy to be on your show. I learned a lot from you, and your questions were very, very pleasant. And
No, your
thank you.
information
Thank you very
is
much.
tremendous.
But now we need to engage your audience to work with us.
Ah,
Partnership.
indeed.